What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for Your Destiny, and today we're going to be breaking down a pair of interviews from the community manager Deej, featured on Heavy.com and BGR, and in these interviews he explains some really interesting things about Destiny 2, talking about the raids and as well the beta, which is now over, and kind of clarifying their philosophy on the purpose of it. Heavy.com asks, are you looking to integrate puzzles into the core game, or are those strictly going to be for raids and side quests? Deej responds in a variety of ways, but basically says no. They aren't looking to scatter that dense content across the land of Destiny, and he gives a few reasons for this. Well, one, they don't want to put up any more barriers to the endgame content than already exists. The endgame content has always been a bit more difficult, challenging, involved, requiring teamwork and communication. And if that kind of gameplay was scattered throughout the core game, it's just simply going to limit the players who even get into the game invested enough to approach the raids. So that kind of stuff is going to be exclusive to those special missions. He gives an example of that it wouldn't feel very good to be playing and expect to get in a general matchmaking game, yet half of the squad doesn't have microphones and the others do. Trying to figure out a riddle like that isn't probably going to be very fun. Also, of course, as Deej says, sometimes it's time to just go blow stuff up. The general core game of Destiny is about blowing things up, and the raids are like a special thing on top of that that expand the game. But it's very important for the Destiny devs to keep the game approachable, and it makes sense why they would make this type of decision. So no, Destiny raid-style gameplay is not going to be scattered throughout the game, but he does let loose with a lot of information about the endgame content, which should provide some confidence to those 1%ers out there. 1%ers alluding to the small percentage of players who do finalize all of the in-game content to get to the end game and keep playing from that point. Heavy.com asks, for the raid and other post-game content, what are you looking for to offer players after they've completed the story? Deej gives a variety of answers again, and I think the best answer that I heard was that you open the map and the map will be littered with all of these things that you can do. I think that's the most important thing, that there's just options available to you. Other quality of life assurances, Deej explained that no longer will you need the companion app to do all sorts of things, like finding out where public events are. That's going to be all in the game. There's going to be lost sectors, raids, Nightfall, and of course Crucible, fleshing out the endgame content. But another interesting thing is that it feels like they're trying to make the regular endgame gameplay loop a bit more organic, because you'll be able to find non-player characters in the world itself rather than just in the social spaces like the Reef or Fellwinter Peak, he says, but you'll actually be able to walk up to them in destinations and interact with them, meaning that your involvement in the world will just be bigger. Heavy asks, when it comes to bosses, is Destiny 2 looking to introduce more unique mechanics that are tied to those specific strikes? And Deej almost lets loose with a spoiler and says strike bosses are certainly more elaborate than like a campaign mini-boss, and you know, raid bosses are the ultimate enemies. Figuring these things out while you play is really the essential experience in playing Destiny. Sometimes brute strength is required, sometimes an interesting combination of, who knows, he trails off. Oh boy, I almost spoiled something. Combination of what, you might ask? Well, I'd have to guess that it wouldn't be something overly complex like a raid, because he already just explained that needing tight communication wouldn't be in a standard mission like a strike. He seems to be alluding to something a bit more complex in the gameplay, which would mean interacting with a strike boss might have a bit more of a deep interaction. There's numerous ways we could speculate about what that could be, but like a lot of things Destiny 2, we're going to have to wait until launch day because they're playing their cards pretty close to the chest. Heavy.com says that they noticed the future DLC is advertising Osiris and Rasputin, so with future content, are you looking to tell more personal stories about characters we don't know much about? And Deej responds by saying, I'm going to have to commit my least favorite cliche and say, that's an excellent question. Based upon the feedback of the Destiny 1 DLC, as to say that it was widely accepted as being great, at least most of the time, fleshing out the game in a way that the core game kind of let down on, you'd have to think that not only that the DLC is going to go down paths to elaborate on characters we don't know a lot about, like Heavy asks, but I would hope that the core game would do that as well, which is the question I wish that was asked, but either way, it would seem Deej wouldn't answer. But based upon his cheeky response, we might venture a guess that this is a core design philosophy that they're going to be going down based upon the good feedback they already had received. Now on to talking about the beta for Destiny 2, which had a mixed reception. Deej gives us insight to Bungie's philosophy of what the beta was intended to do, and says explicitly that it was not a trial demo, it was a test. We wanted to see more than anything if our functionality was up to the task of accommodating hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of players. It goes on to say that they were looking to make sure that the game could support the community on day one, making sure that the server infrastructure was up to the task, as well as get feedback on weapon balance to be able to do minor tweaks to things for the launch day. The interesting thing here, of course, is the difference between Destiny 2's beta and Destiny 1. Now, whereas he explicitly said that Destiny 2 beta was not a trial, based upon his answer about the difference between the two, he kind of makes it seem like that was the goal with Destiny 1. Doesn't explicitly say that, but back in 2014, they wanted to set the template of expectations of what Destiny is, giving players a sense of character progression, story missions, etc., and felt like with Destiny 2, they didn't need to provide as much proof of concept. Now, it doesn't say this explicitly, but you might take that to mean that they didn't like the way that they used the first beta as a trial because it seemed to kind of backfire. So perhaps that's something that they were looking to avoid with Destiny 2. Another good point is that they don't want you to have to speedrun 30% of the steps that you already did in the beta when the real game comes out. It's going to feel repetitive and more stale if you have already played a lot of the story already at the start of the game when you have to play it again when the game comes out. It seems like Bungie's really trying to hit a home run from launch day and make an impression without having to lean on the beta to do so. But of course, by doing that, releasing the beta as bare bones as it was, it kind of left a negative impression. But perhaps that's even better if you think about it. We could probably make a separate video about this idea alone, but having minimal expectations, or in fact low expectations, is probably better for them at this point, so that when the game comes out and we experience all the things that they're talking about firsthand, rather than experiencing it already in the beta, then we can have a more pleasurable first go of it. He defends Destiny 2 as a real sequel, and I think we have to give this to him. I think there's a lot of complaints that fly about that aren't really fair to a sequel, or a lot of players seemingly want a vastly different experience, which of course would anger the majority of players who want a true sequel that is more strong to the core concepts and building on them, which it seems like that's exactly what Destiny 2 is all about. And Deej goes on to explain that that seems to be what Bungie is doing. Now in 2017, they have the knowledge of Destiny 1, knowing what their players want and need and the expectations that are there. And Destiny 2, as he says, is a way for them to be able to elaborate on a lot of those themes. We're able to evolve just about every aspect of the way people enjoy playing Destiny. And I think that's the key. It's not about making a brand new art aesthetic or making the HUD or the game feel different for some reason. It's about making everything just an upgrade on the experience that you had in Destiny 1. And if all the things that he explained thus far that I covered in this video are to be believed, I would say it's probably the case. What do you guys think? Are you excited about the way that they're handling the end game, as well as, I guess, the early game by not spoiling any of it in the beta, and hopefully that being a nice, smooth, fun ride from day one? Do you think that was a good strategy for them to use, or are you still mad you barely got anything in the beta? I think if anything, on launch day, we probably will all forget about the beta, so that's where my opinion is anyway. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and you're going to want to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Linked in the description, you can check out our Twitter and our Discord server. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for Your Destiny. I'll see you guys next time.